Good evening, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple moments while those who registered are joining us here. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are watching from. I know we've got a lot of countries represented, which is great, especially for a session on Model United Nations. So we'll give it just a couple more seconds. Excellent. I see the participant list is ticking up. So this might be a good spot to just do a quick round of introductions before I let my co-presenters take it from there. My name is Nick Porcella. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admissions at Clark, and I'm behind the scenes moderating tonight. I'm going to let Kate, Nassim, and Jacob really run the show, and really excited to have them talk with all of you about Model United Nations at Clark. So I'll let them all introduce themselves. I guess the only other quick announcement is, as we're going tonight, we use the Q&A feature for the any questions that you may have. So put questions in the Q&A feature, and we'll work behind the scenes to get those answered more towards the end, and we'll go from there. So I will turn it over to Kate, Nassim, and Jacob, and I'm just going to step back, and I'll be around if you need me. Take it away.
Thank you, Nick. So to start off, I am Nassim Ali-Ahmad. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a junior at Clark studying economics and political science, and I am Model United Nations at Clark. I am the Officer of Advancement and Recruitment.
Hey everyone, my name's Kate. I am a junior at Clark. I study environmental science on the Earth System Science track, and my minor is in political science. On the team in the past, I've just been a regular student and regular delegate, and then I was the archivist this past year, and this year I am the co-president of the team.
Hey everybody, my name's Jacob. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a second semester senior at Clark studying political science and economics. On the Model United Nations team, I'm a delegate and compete, but on top of that, I'm the treasurer for the team.
So what is MUN? So basically, Model United Nations is kind of a simulation and educational experience in which delegates, aka us students, partake in committees that range from a variety of different topics. And topics can be something of a world issue, a regional issue, or some historic time period that is kind of simulating the issues of that time. So there's a bunch of different ways to get involved and be able to simulate these things, like through a general assembly. So these conferences can look anything within your room with 200 people kind of sitting in rows and giving speeches to each other, or it could be kind of like a committee room where you're at like a round table and having more personalized discussion. So there's a bunch of different ways that Model UN takes form. And as you explore and get to learn about it, you kind of find what works best for you. And so the conferences that we'll talk more about later, they take place all across the United States and even Canada, which is one of them that we go to. And as well as around the world, there's something called World MUN. So it's definitely a global kind of experience.
So our team, it's a little bit confusing, but we'll talk about it in a minute, that our team is broken up into being a club and also a class. But the team is the competitive team that we have on campus. And this past year, we ranked 15th in North America. So that does include Mexico and Canada in those rankings. We'll show you guys a little bit more what that's like in comparison to the other schools that we are around. But we have about 30 students that come to every meeting each week on Tuesdays. Those numbers can fluctuate depending on COVID and stuff like that. But in a regular all-in-person semester, we'll have about 50 students that come to meetings. And it's open to anyone. You can come having done MUN from the time that you're in middle school, or you can just be fresh off the boat, right, new to the club and to Model UN as a topic. Does not matter, because we start off every semester with like a MUN 101 intro class. So everyone starts on the same level. And there's a bunch of fun different activities that we do that are talking about different UN topics, speech giving practice, looking at different legislation, practicing clause writing, and so forth. And there's also a lot of opportunities for leaderships at all different levels. So as you see, Jacob is a senior, Nassim and I are both juniors. We have freshmen that are on officer positions and will be applying to be Eboard members next semester. So you can get involved at all different levels. And you also can compete and be included in a bunch of different things. So you can be on the travel team and go to different conferences. You can help run the conferences that we have here at Clark. You also will be working on developing your soft skills and also interacting with the community. And that's kind of a new thing that we just started this year, where we're doing high school workshops with the different schools nearby, which has been really, really fun. And we're kind of getting them introduced to Model UN, and then eventually they'll come to our high school conferences and compete.
So I can talk a little bit about what Model United Nations looks like as a class relative to the club. So the class, what it basically requires is that you have a set curriculum, but on top of that, competing in some of these conferences, whether digitally or in person, or assisting delegates who are going to be competing, is going to be a part of the curriculum. Just a little bit about it. It obviously involves learning about some of the organs that compose the United Nations. For example, that may mean the General Assembly, which is where you might have delegates get up and give big speeches, or it might be, for example, a specialized agency, which is a little more particular. You might learn more about a historical event. So again, it might vary. The point of the Model United Nations course, like fundamental to its curriculum, is learning how to develop those soft skills. Like it says there, public speaking, policy writing, argumentation, debate. A lot of it is social cues, for example, and it also means, for example, learning a little bit of negotiation, what it means, for example, to bargain in person. And a lot of it really is not just understanding those hard policy facts. You don't need to come into it with that policy background. It really is learning about those soft skills, which is one of the most fundamental things you take away from it. You do, like it says here, learn in depth about international and particular historical events. For example, if you're doing a big GA or General Assembly or anything like that, you, for example, might be covering a wide topic. But for example, if it's something like a crisis, you might have more of an understanding about a narrowed specific historical event. It might be, for example, about a cabinet in a country versus a wider historical event happening at that time. At the end of the day, it is a bunch of kind of like nerds arguing about policy. It might not necessarily be about that, but you're working with a group of people who are committed and have a love for understanding the world around them. And like it says there, passionate group of people developing solutions on these international issues. This really is everything that composes the class. It's about learning soft skills, competing conferences, meeting and working with people. And on top of that, it does contribute to the completion of your major. And on top of that, like if you're a political science student, is a bit of a nice GPA boost. So we're going to do right now, just show you a video from one of our classes. It's a bit of a simulation. We're going to show it to you right now.
Along primary line. Senator McCain is a great friend of mine, and I find it quite disturbing that we are already picking our partisan lines along this. We have a beautiful majority. And why not take advantage of this majority? Why not take advantage of this momentum?
So as you can see right there, it's literally like, it would look like it was simulating a Senate committee. You might be assigned a senator in this case. You're going to be debating policy. And the point of it is that you immerse yourself in your character and you really develop an understanding of the discussion for you. All right, then last thing that I wanted to go over here is conference hosting. Clark Model United Nations, because we are a really involved team, not just on the circuit, we try to be involved in the local Worcester area. That extends to a few areas. Specifically, we have our Clark Mun conference, and then we have our Woo Mun conference. The Clark Mun conference typically hosts, like it says there, between 400 and 500 delegates. Typically that's in person. This year we just hosted our first online conference. Depending how next year goes, we will figure that out. But the Clark Mun conference, generally speaking, it says there, it's a crisis committee generally, primarily crisis. What that means is when we talk about that narrowly tailored idea of trying to understand something, for example, you might be assigned an individual in the US cabinet, or for example, you might be a historical figure within a group, maybe like a legislative body, just some examples. That's what a crisis looks like. You're assigned a character and you're trying to further your goals within a specific historical context. WUMUN, though, is our middle school conference, and that usually runs GA or General Assembly. There are a few kinds of General Assemblies, but what you basically need to know is that you're assigned a country and you have a position as that country, and you need to do what you can to further your goal representing that state. So again, that's more the typical idea you have with Model UN. It's getting up on podiums, it's like banging your fist, it's arguing, it's kind of like hashing out policy. That's what it looks like. If you take this as a class, it's going to be a requirement. But what it means, for example, is that you get to meet a bunch of middle schoolers or high schoolers. You get to debate with some of these students, and it means you get to literally walk them through the process of, for example, like forming a bill, merging the documents, and then eventually passing something at the end of the day.
So I'm going to take some time to talk about our travel team and kind of what a typical conference schedule looks like, and kind of how we competed this year. So, majority of the costs are paid through the team. So any travel fees and housing fees are uh, you know, covered by the team. So you don't have to worry about that. And other teams usually do. One thing that we're working on is being able to subsidize and work with the food that we can have on these conference excursions, that will be able to make sure that the burden of cost does not have to go upon anyone, which is something we're really proud about on our travel team. Another thing is that we encourage all students to compete no matter what, and no matter their experience level. So personally, I came in as a freshman on the team with no public speaking, no Model UN experience whatsoever. And I went to 5 conferences my freshman year, and they're always great experiences, great learning experiences. And even though I didn't have the experience at first, the team is always willing to invest and help you grow as a delegate, which is always fun. And as you can see in that middle column, a bunch of the cities that will typically travel for these conferences. They're typically 4 days, so and it's a weekend, so it's some time that you have to devote to, but you usually plan ahead, which is great. And then this year, we had a Zoom schedule where all the conferences were predominantly online. So you have a bunch of those that happened over Zoom. And those numbers on top show the awards that we've gone throughout the season. So gavels refer to first place, outstanding is a second place, honorable is typically third place, and a verbal is 4th or 5th place. So we're thankfully a very accomplished team, and it's a great place that everyone can learn how to compete and be part of the team. To put our ranking in context, we put the schools that are a little bit above us and a little bit below us. I love to point out how we are ranked higher than Harvard University, and it typically stays like that because we're a competitive team that teaches our delegates very well, and the skills that we develop on the team really last a long time and really last beyond Model UN. So we're really proud of our ranking, and it's something that whether you decide to compete or not, you can always contribute to through helping others who want to compete or helping throw our home conference and engaging with the community. So there are a lot of ways to get involved, but in terms of our travel team, this is how we kind of rank within context.
So as Nassim kind of mentioned, we did have to pivot a lot during this past year for COVID reasons. All of our conferences were online, and we also were able to host our high school conference, Clark-Munn, online as well. As you can see in the bottom left corner, we used a software that was called Gatherly, and that's specifically for Model United Nations conferences. So that was a fun thing to tackle and to learn how to do. But we still have class in person, and we are always masked, and we try and be as distant as we can, unless we're working in small groups in a distance classroom that we sanitize, following all of the protocol. But it's been really nice to be able to be in person and to still have that in-person aspect of MUN, because so much of it is online, and the dynamics and the social skills that we've been talking about. We really had to learn how to pivot those to make those applicable to the online version. But we still had a lot of fun with it. We competed so much. Some of our students would go to upwards of 6 or 7 conferences this year. And we had a lot of new students try it out for the first time, which was really, really great, especially with kind of the intimidation of being online. A lot of students were nervous, but we had such a great attitude, such a great energy, and we finished off our competitive season this past Sunday, yesterday, winning a gavel and 2 other awards, which was really, really awesome. As you can see in the top right, that's us at closing ceremonies in the library waiting for us to hear our awards. We also did particularly well at that conference too. That was really fun. But yeah, so it definitely had to pivot, but it was still a lot of fun to be able to compete. And we're hoping, knocking on wood, that everything will be okay to compete in person again. But we'll see for the fall. And then fun. We like to have a lot of fun because our little motto is that MUN is fun. So we can't go without a semester of having some type of fun along the way. We have some photos of us doing our usual traditions. We like to go apple picking in the fall, and we like to hike Mount Wachusett in the spring at the end of the semester. And then we'll also do a bunch of weird little things in between. We always have a celebration after our high school and middle school conference, which is really, really fun. And we also now have a Model UN peacekeeping helmet that we like to pass around the team. So that's a fun little tradition that we just started. This past election season, we watched a lot of debates in person. We got one of the bigger rooms on campus, and we were able to socially distance watch those parties. And then the middle photos, actually us after the election was called. We all just gathered in our friend's lawn and stayed distance and had a lot of fun just hanging out and enjoying that Saturday. We were actually in the middle of doing an online simulation to practice, and then we just called it because we were all very excited to be able to have an excuse to not do work. But we also like to phone bank. We were doing a lot of local phone banking. And this year, our political coordinators that are officers, and one of them is a freshman, the other one is a sophomore. So again, getting involved at different levels. We're working on what to phone bank for now and how to get involved in the community in a political way shortly. So that's kind of up in the air right now, but we're figuring it out for the non-election season. And then we also like to have team dinners at conferences when they're in person. One of our biggest things is that on Saturday nights, we always do something fun together during conference weekends, especially over Zoom. We've been going to hang out at University Park, which is right across the way, and we would go on walks. We got Delat, which is the best Vietnamese food around campus. And I bought for the whole team, which is a lot of bags of Vietnamese food. But it was really, really fun. Everyone's paying me back. It's okay. But it was really a great way to just kind of celebrate. And then another weird little tradition that I helped start, Nassim and I actually helped start our freshman year, was scavenger hunts throughout Montreal, which is very competitive and very, very fun. So when we go up there in Canada, that's our little tradition. But yeah, so we love to have fun. We're serious, we're legit, we're a hardworking team, but you know, we always have to bond and have fun and have a smile on our face while we do it. And I believe that is it. So right now we can answer any questions that you guys have live. You can also email us at mun@clarku.edu. I will open up the chat and I will just facilitate the questions that are coming through, and I'll throw them to anyone that wants to answer them. So the first one is, do you think it has been the key to success? What do you think has been the key to success to the Clark's Model UN team in the last couple of years? So I think, Jacob, you've been here the longest, so if you want to start by answering it, and then Nassim, if you have anything to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, I'm just an old man on this team, so that's how it works. I think there are a few reasons that we've been a really successful team. The first is obviously we have high expectations of our members. We're a small, close, intimate team, so a lot of people are able to go to multiple conferences, but I think that gives us a lot of exposure. We provide delegates with a lot of support. So that means, for example, is when delegates are competing, even if it's your first conference or even if it's your last conference, we try to make sure that there's somebody who's able to work with you while you're competing to make sure you're supported behind the scenes, just to make sure it's like, I'm having a tough time in this room, I'm trying to work out this policy, can you help me out with that? We try to provide a lot of support. The next thing about it is that we understand that several delegates, if not most of them, come in without having Model UN experience before them. And so our curriculum is literally built to help build delegates from the ground up. It's really meant to be a personal experience. If, for example, we know you want to build on your public speaking skills, or let's say you want to kind of develop more policy competency, then we try to work with you one-on-one specifically with that so that you can grow in the way that you want to be as a delegate. To sum that up, we try to give you a lot of exposure at conferences. We always have somebody working with you along the way. And on top of that, it's a very growth-oriented mindset. We see where we want to grow, and we try to build that as a team.
Nassim, do you have anything to add? Yeah.
No, I honestly think Jacob put it really well. And just like to emphasize that it's really one of those things that I like how Jacob put it. We build from the ground up. So if it's something that seems so daunting, it's great to try something new, and the support is there to build you up. Prior to college, the closest thing I got to public speaking was making a disruption in class. So, and now I'm giving speeches and being able to be a competitive member on the travel team with having no prior experience, and that's a testament to the team's development.
Yeah, and I think just to top it off, I think that the people that we surround ourselves with really makes the team, and the energy that we bring to conferences. I think that whenever people know that we're from Clark University, it's never a bad thing. It's more of like, you guys are just really nice and you guys like to have fun doing what you do. And I think that shows. Like last week, we were all tired after competing and we still had a really hot debate topic, and Jacob was absolutely crushing it, having really, hot debate about different topics and stuff like that. And the drive was still there, and I was honestly blown away, just at how much people still wanted to have that competitive edge and get better and improve. And I feel like that's really a foundational aspect of our team. So thank you for that question. Yeah, keep dropping them in the chat. We love to, or in the Q&A feature, we love to answer them live. Pick our brains literally about anything. We have time for it. So how are the trainings? How many times per week, and at what hours do you guys usually train for conferences? That's an awesome question. So we usually train from 6 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. And yes, that does sound like a very weird time, but it actually works out really well for students because you're taking it as a club, or if you're taking it as a half credit, it doesn't get in the way of other classes you may be taking. So it's actually a really nice time. And we do give students a break to go get dinner, because the cafeteria does close at 8. So we usually have a break at like 7:30, 7:40, and people can come and during usual non-COVID times, bring it back and eat on campus and in the classroom. But we do a bunch of different activities. Jacob and Nassim, you guys can talk a little bit more about like your favorite ones if you want. But usually it just goes, we have a sign-in sheet, we have funny questions that we ask each week, and then we'll run into a bunch of different activities and have announcements. They can be practicing speeches, they can be simulating a different event. If you guys, Jacob and Nassim, I know you guys both practiced the one this past week, so if you guys want to talk about that, you can. But yeah, we'll usually just do different exercises depending on what the delegates that just competed really think would really help them excel at the next conference and get better and improve. And that's something, because we've been having a lot of back-to-back weeks the past, I think 3 or 4 weeks that we've had competitions. So we really focus on hearing that feedback and having delegates say, like, I want to have a multitasking activity and I want to get really good at speaking, but also writing while I'm speaking and making sure I'm keeping up to pace with committee. So we really like to focus on that and kind of pivot. We do have a syllabus that we send out, because it is a class and we need to, but we also have those aspects where we are flexible and we like to listen to what students want. So Jacob or Nassim, if you guys have anything to add, feel free.
I can go real quick. So on the question about trainings, it's a few things. So for example, I think most people would agree, training is probably heaviest near the start of the academic year, just because when we're introducing you to a lot of the topics, concepts, and themes. When we don't normally have conferences, and again, like, because it's been especially heavy conference last few weeks, we don't usually have weekend practices. We on occasion may have weekend practices. And again, that's especially for new delegates who may have not had any exposure to the Model UN circuit. The point of that is just to familiarize yourself with everything. At most, then we'd like to talk. It might be twice a week that we practice. Well, then like Kate's saying, the 3-hour block, I do think it's perfect, because like let's just say it's a sports example. Like, what's more useful? Like, competing in 3 1-hour blocks, like that's a little weird. Or for example, like you have a good chunk of time to like actually like get worked up, develop, like, and then like get some feedback. I think the 3-hour block is really perfect.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. You guys got it. Yeah, nice.
Thanks, Nassim, for your contributions to this team and to the webinar in general. No kidding, he's a great person. But yeah, I was you just jogged my memory to say something. Oh yeah, Tuesdays are for the team. I feel like I always think about Tuesdays and I always think about Model UN. It's like very much so ingrained in my mind. The next question is pretty straightforward. What are the different areas and leadership positions on the team, and how do you guys choose head delegates and the people who train? That's an awesome question, because we actually just updated our constitution, not this past fall, but the fall before, because it hasn't been updated in like 10 years or something like that. And we realized that the structure of the team wasn't really what we wanted it to be. So we changed it to have an Eboard platform and also 2 co-presidents. We also use the word head delegates when we go to conferences. And then we also have the officers, and we also have mentors. So there's a lot of different ways to go about having leadership positions. But so basically, the head delegates, aka the co-presidents, we have a senior position and a junior position, and they're basically equals. They're just the different levels of like what year you're going to graduate. So I'm the junior co-president right now, and basically there was just an application process. I filled out a Google form, they will email the previous head delegates will email the entire team acknowledging who ran for the position, and then have an interview process with them. And then about a week later or whenever later, they will make the decision of who will be the next head. And that's usually the e-board gets to vote. And if it's a split or if they want more input, they'll open up to the graduating senior class. So then there's no influence of popularity votes or anything like that on the team. It's just based off of who they think would really excel in the position. And then e-board is a little bit different. Honeycutt, you can talk a little bit more. Sorry, Jacob. His nickname is Honeycutt, and every single time I see Jacob, it always throws me off. But the e-board position is a little bit different. It's just chosen by the 2 head delegates, and then the officer positions are chosen by the entire e-board. And the officers, as Nasim said, they have a bunch of different roles. So they can be a political coordinator, they could be the social chair, they could be the community outreach coordinator, they could be the archivist, which is a really important role because we have a lot of data coming through our doors. And then the outreach, or whatever your title is, Nasim, it's the administrative something or another recruitment aspect of the team. So we have all of those, and then we have something that's not in our constitution, but we really enjoy doing. It's called our mentorship program. And that's basically, again, students that sign up, fill out a form, and they can lead the team. And we have sophomores and juniors that hold that position. And basically, it was really helpful for our first semester because all the new students would be integrated into these different groups, and they would go through practice and group trainings together instead of just being thrown in a room with 30 students you don't know. So that was a really great way to help get people comfortable and dip their toes into MUN. But Jacob, if you want to talk a little bit more about eBoard and then Nasim a little bit about officers really quick, I think we have time for that.
Yeah, I can talk a little about eBoard, but I would say this is Model UN, but a lot of this also extends to if you want to be a part of an eBoard of other organizations. The eBoard really is a good introductory role if you want to learn some leadership skills. For example, as treasurer, I didn't have any knowledge of what it meant to be a treasurer, but this year what it means is that I learned how to formulate the budget, to, for example, finance requests, how to literally fund a conference, booking venues. I think one of the important things about eBoard is it's a senior leadership position, and it is something, for example, not just employers, but it's literally something that helps you develop the skills and competencies that you can take beyond MUN. But it is one of those things, it is helpful, I will say, to be leadership of an organization like Model UN, because it really is it's meant to be an organization that runs like a machine. We're number 15 in North America for a reason. And I think being eBoard on one of the most competitive teams in North America really does instill a lot of good values when it comes to, for example, work ethic, keeping busy, communicating with your members, learning new skills. It really is one of those things that I think if you have an interest, for example, not just in public policy, but in forms of leadership, I would really encourage you to take on an eBoard role, not just at Model UN, but in any of the organizations you're interested in.
And I can talk a little bit about the officer positions. So officers are a step down from the executive board, where you're still having a leadership position on the team, but you're kind of in a more concentrated area. So like I said, I'm the officer in advancement and recruitment. So I focus a lot on the retention of the team, of why members are staying, why are they leaving, and also looking towards recruiting people like you guys. So it's one of those things where I get to kind of focus in on something that I really care about and can contribute to the team on a lesser scale and a lesser commitment if that's what my schedule needs. So it's a great way to still get involved while not, and also setting yourself up for an executive board position if that's something you'd like to do in the future.
Yeah, I think that was a good last point. We definitely like to see the progression of leadership on the team, to know that you're committed. I'm definitely looking at that for when I help choose the eBoard for next year, because I'm the only returning person that's currently on it. So as Nasim said, the officers is a great place to start. And we do have freshmen that have that position. So again, not scary at all. Totally get involved at whatever level. But we definitely have time to get through all these questions. Thank you so much for sending them. What are the differences between high school and college MUN, or are they basically the same thing? That is a great question. I know that I competed in high school MUN. I don't know, Jacob, if you did. Nasim, I know you didn't. Okay, so I guess I'll just answer this quickly because it looks like Jacob didn't. But high school MUN just seems like a dream. It seems so far ago, and far away, but it definitely is different in the fact that social dynamics matter a lot more. and that you're always competing. I think that there's just so many schools out there that are really cutthroat that it brings a different atmosphere. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed about high school MUN was just loving the topics and loving the debate. And I think that that's something that our school does a really good job at focusing on and making sure that we're engaged in whatever topic we are competing for. And I would say just on the grander level, the conferences are a lot more broad and a lot wider. There's a lot more people coming to them. I don't know what conferences you guys all go to at the high school level. If you want to drop in the chat some of the places you guys go, I might have overlapped with you. But I think that the college level, you know the circuit a lot better. And the circuit is what we like to call the social network of MUN. So you'll know students from Claremont McKenna and from the University of California schools, and you'll know the kids from McGill, and you'll know the kids from Florida International University. And I feel like I didn't really get that in high school. So I think that that's different. And I think the last big difference is that a lot of the people that are competing want to go into roles of leadership in politics and diplomacy in the future. So it's really cool connections that you can make. But the same structure applies the same way that committees would be run is the same. So thank you for that question. And then the next one we have is, thanks for doing this. You're welcome. We love to do these types of things. It's so much fun. Quick question. What is the process like to be selected to go to conferences? Do students have to apply, or is there some process that they have to go through? That's an awesome question. I'll just answer it quickly. It definitely depends on the year. And also depends on how many people want to compete. So I know that during my freshman year in the SEAM, we had a lot of people that wanted to compete, and we would always have tryouts. And that consisted of, usually having on-the-fly speeches and practicing writing and kind of doing stuff as you would in committee, and seeing, who would be able to excel at that conferences. And I know that I tried out for my first conference at UpMonk, and I did not get a spot on the traveling team, and Nassim did. And I just remember feeling so just like kind of off put by it. But then the head delegates came up to me and they were like, we know that you can do this, and we know that you just need to get better at what you can do, and you're going to be able to excel and go on the team. And I'm so glad I didn't go to that first conference, because I had a lot more I could have learned. Nowadays, we don't really have an application process because our team is a little bit smaller with COVID. So it's basically like, if you want to travel, you can. And we're hoping to keep that type of mentality moving forward, but it really just depends on our budget and how many people we can send logistically in cars or whatever it may be, flights, stuff like that. But we try and get every student that wants to go to a conference to go at some point during the semester. And we're usually successful with that, unless there's conflicts with scheduling. But yeah, it's not intimidating. It sounds like it is with the interview process or the tryout process, but I haven't done one of those since my freshman or beginning of sophomore year. So again, not something we try and focus on. We like to lower the stress level of the team, save that for competing. But how often do you do simulations with the team? I know, Jacob, you've been able to run a couple simulations. Do you want to talk about this briefly?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about it quick. So simulations, it honestly depends what part of the season we're in. For example, like how you can basically think about it is fall semester, first semester, tends to have, I want to say, a lot more GA or General Assembly. Second semester tends to have a lot more crisis. That's not absolute. There's some variation with that, but we typically try to host a lot more simulations. Simulations typically happen a lot more during the start of the semester when we're training, introducing delegates to the topics. As the conferences start to pick up, because conferences can be like up to 2 to 4 day events. That's like the longer ones end up being 4. We typically don't do simulations around them because people get tired reasonably. Same thing that happens in the spring semester. It tends to be pretty heavy near the start of it, just introducing people to themes, kind of what you expect on the circuit. As the conference schedule picks up, we start to teeter off with the simulations. How often do we do them? Again, I'd say probably once every other week on a Saturday, maybe. We probably do every other week in class. So for example, that might turn out to 1 simulation a week. That might be one of the times it's in class. And then maybe next Saturday we'll do another simulation.
Yeah, and definitely, as you said, depends on the semester and depends on where we are in the term. Like, we haven't had a simulation in a couple weeks now. I would say we haven't had one this semester, if I'm honest, because we've been competing almost every weekend. But in the fall, we knew that that was going to be the lighter load because a lot of conferences moved to online platforms for spring conferences instead of hosting in the fall. So we were definitely sim heavy in the beginning. And I think that now that we're done with the competing season, we're going to have a couple fun ones coming up. But again, it's all about scheduling. And if we have to fit them during class, we can. So thanks for that question. And I would say the last two are pretty similar. So I think that we can all just have a quick round about answering those. Round robin, if you know that Model UN term, and just go around in a circle and speak a little bit. But again, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I know people are chatting about which conferences they go to. That's awesome. And again, feel free to email Mun@Clark U, and we can meet you in person. We can respond to your emails. We can have another Zoom chat, the three of us, one of us, whatever. But how difficult or easy is it to manage MUN with other clubs and sports? And do you have time to be involved in those other things? So awesome questions to both Sean and Maggie. Thank you for asking them. I would say yes. I love to manage my time and I love to do everything that I can. I am on a couple different other clubs and committees and councils, so I like to stay involved. I don't want to list them off right now, but I'm also on a varsity sports team. I'm a rower, and that is definitely a big commitment. But I think that it's really fun to have a busy schedule, and I like to be able to be involved in any way possible. So I think it's a matter of just kind of sitting down at the beginning of your week and kind of thinking through how you're going to structure your time. Nassim privately messaged me making fun of the fact that I row because that's a team joke that we have, but that's okay. But yeah, so I think that it definitely depends. We do have balancing workshops that we do as a team, which is a new thing that I started this past semester, because I knew that our delegates were definitely trying to make sure that they had time for academics and fun and club involvement. And I think that that really helped a lot of students just kind of sit there and think through like what their schedule would look like. There's a lot of resources outside of the team also for kind of balancing and making sure that your schedules work. But if you take all the upperclassmen combined, we've taken almost every class at this school. So you can definitely use us as a resource when you're planning your time out. But again, we only meet Tuesdays for 3 hours. So if you're a delegate that has decided that they don't want to travel that semester and you would rather get involved with Clark Mun, or you would rather be the social chair, then maybe you'll have a meeting for an hour outside of outside of every class once a week or something like that. And it really lightens your load. But if you want to be a delegate that's competing every single weekend, then that's going to be a different weight. And that's up to your own, choice. That's your discretion. So we like everyone to dip their toes in the competitive world, in the administration world, in the leadership world. But again, you get to balance your own schedule and we will support you with whatever you do. But I know Jacob, Nassim, we're all very involved. And I think that that's kind of the thing with Model UN. So if you guys just want to quickly explain how you balance your time and something like that, that'd be great.
Sure, I can go first with this one. Yeah, you definitely have a lot more free time in college than you might be used to, especially compared to high school. And, like Kate was saying, when it comes to Model UN, you can kind of choose how much you want to put in, whether it's just going to the class and going to the simulations, or getting some of these leadership positions, going to more meetings, more, so you can choose how much you want to put in. So, and as well that, and Kate kind of alluded to this as well, is that we also have support for the team, whether it's help with the class, help with budgeting your time. Last semester, we held a couple of balancing workshops, which we went over techniques to go over how to balance your time and how to budget, when to do what work, when to do what clubs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of support on the team, and that's what makes it doable most of all. And it really comes down to budgeting your time, which is a doable thing, no matter how many other clubs you want to get involved in that aren't Model UN.
So I can pick up a little bit real quick where Nassim left off. If you're one of those students, for example, that tends to involve themselves in a lot of things, and I do think that the Model UN team attracts people who like to do a lot of things. For example, I don't think any of us just do Model UN, and I don't think that's the case for anybody on the Model UN team. We all keep pretty busy. if, for example, you're a member of Eboard or you're an officer, scheduling can get tough. But again, like it's something that first off, Eboard's always willing to work with students on. We recognize that people have priorities. A lot of students have work study programs at school, but it's definitely something that's completely manageable. In fact, I think the team is informed again, like we've talked about. It's meant to make sure that you can grow not as a delegate, but also as a person. And so we do try to be incredibly accommodating toward people's schedules. There are meetings that people can miss. There are classes that people can't make once in a while, but we do recognize that like the system that we have in place, even if it doesn't perfectly work with your schedule, like our delegates tend to be involved in multiple things, whether it's student council, mock trial, even rowing, even something like rowing. Yeah, can be pretty involved.
Always get a little shot from rowing. It's totally fine, but whatever. But yeah, so I think that the most important thing, especially going into the co-president position this year, that I realized is that communication is just the most important thing. And if that's you communicating to us, hey, look, I really can't come this week because I have a lot of homework, or hey, like I have a lot of time on my hands and I really want to be more involved, that's awesome. And that's the stuff that I love to hear as a leader. Because if you're not busy and you want to do it, if you want to help run the debriefings for online conferences and help support those delegates, feel free, take that off my plate. That's totally fine by me. Or if you're really, really busy, I would love to know that, just so that I know that I can help provide you with that support, and then also reach out to eBoard members or officers or mentors or anyone on the team that might like be in your field of study and might know someone that you could talk to help with the readings or look at your notes or help you study for exams or something like that. Because not all of us are political science people. We have a lot of people that do bio and geography and other things like that. And I would definitely say that a lot of people do stay busy, but I also know that a lot of people don't. And like, I know a lot of people that do MUN and they write their honors thesis and they call it a day, and they might have a job on the side of it, but that's just what they love and that's what they love to do. So I think we support students with whatever decisions they make. And I also know like some people, for example, especially when you get older on the team, for example, there's this one girl named Katie who competed last year and she's great. She's awesome. She's one of my idols. But this year she was really busy and she, was also interning for a local politician and couldn't make Tuesday meetings, but she ran the Clark MUN conference. And that was really great for her to do. So I think that you can definitely balance it. And we're here to support you for that. So last question, unless anyone else has anything to drop in these last couple minutes. I like this one. How has Model UN changed your vision of the world? Which skills do you normally develop? I'm going to pass it off to someone else to start because I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking. So Nassim or Jacob, you guys can take it away and I'll just wrap it up at the
end. I can start this one off. It definitely, because of the way Model UN focuses on certain global topics, depending on if you're competing or not, it really exposes you to a lot of different topics and a lot of different global issues, which really changed my vision of the world and made me more aware of what is going on in the world and what sort of action is being done, what sort of action is not being done, and really gets you involved in these global issues. And a skill that kind of comes with that is that it also teaches you to research these skills and research these topics, and also be able to think critically about them and think critically more about, well, yes, the topic, and then it can translate over into your schoolwork and into what you're learning in the classroom, and really blends together to be able to, reinforce what you're learning in the classroom separate from Model UN. So it really develops you into a holistic kind of person that can really think critically and know a lot about global issues that don't just pertain to the United States, which I think is a really cool opportunity that Model UN has presented me and everyone else on the team. So if Jacob or Kate want to pick up from there.
Yeah, I can pick up quick. One funny thing I want to say, when Kate was talking about Katie interviewing and working with local congressperson, that's Congressman McGovern. He's like, Katie does fantastic stuff. Just want to give a shout out to Katie. But I think one of the things that I took away from this, I think two things. First, I think Model UN really taught me to let go of opinions that I cannot defend. And I think that's because you honestly are constantly humbled on this team. You're working with some smart people, and you really do learn that like there are some opinions that like after an hour of debate you realize like I actually don't know if I fully like believe the argument that I'm giving. And I do think it like almost, it teaches you, like it's weird, it teaches your brain to be more accepting of learning new things. I think literally it's like rewired my brain to say like if I cannot accept an opinion I've defended, to move on and to learn from that. I think it's a team that's taught me a lot how to grow, and it's given me a lot of hope for the world because I see a lot of young people who are energized and involved on this team. I'll throw it to Kate to wrap it up.
Yeah, I know we're closing on time, so I'll just go quickly. But I think that the one thing, this is so weird, like definitely wasn't looking for this answer, but I think that it shows me how interconnected the world is on a couple different levels. One, just like the network of MUN and the circuit, as we talked about, just like overlapping with people that you haven't seen for 4 years. And then all of a sudden, it just shows how connected the world is. And then also just on topics, like it's wild to have a committee that was based in 1986. This is a real committee that I was in for FIFA Women's World Cup, and how that related back to a high school committee I had that was on women refugees. Like there's weird relations and correlations and things that I can take that I've learned from all those different realms and apply to other places. And it just shows you how interconnected the world's issues are and how they transcend boundaries and borders, which I think is really interesting. And skills, again, really quickly, sorry, that I think that I didn't realize that I developed a lot of skills. If I'm honest, like I didn't really notice that I was developing as a delegate until I had my international negotiations and mediation class. Nassim and I were both in it this past fall, and we had a simulation for a month, and it was like my dream. I had so much fun with it. But I remember talking to my professor afterwards, and he was just like, Kate, what did you just do? You just ran that room. Like you were asking for the opinions of people on your topic and that topic and intertwining the two and really driving everyone to do their best. And I think that I just didn't realize it, but I think that the thing that I've learned is how to be an influential person in the room and try and make people move in whatever direction I want them to move into in a productive way, which I don't really think that I could have learned in another class. And one of the kids that joined this semester, he said this to me the other day when I was walking home, but he was just like, Model UN makes my brain work in such a different way than any class I ever took. And I was like, honestly, yeah, like you're totally right with that. So yeah, I think that that's all we're going to do today. We are out of time. We're a little over. Thank you for staying on if you did. But you guys rock. Thank you for coming. You'll 100% be joining in the fall. That's awesome. Please email Mun at Clark U. Anyone, please email Mun at Clark U if you're
Thank you, Adrian, my king.
Yeah, please come. That's so exciting. But yeah, please just, if you are coming on campus and you're going to do a tour and you want to grab a coffee with one of us, sit on the green. If you want to Zoom more and ask more questions about class, course, sign up, whatever it may be, feel free to do so. But that's awesome. I'm so excited that you're coming to the school. So yeah, and if you're on the fence and you want to talk it through, we are all on the fence at one stage of life. So please feel free to talk to us. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Nick is going to abruptly end this, so stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for coming. We appreciate it.
This is my part where I abruptly ended. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.